My name is Megan Whitmore. I'm 23 years old and live with my son Liam in a small apartment in Hilford, Vermont, a quiet, quaint town known for its independent artist community and old European-style architecture. My life revolves around quiet mornings, making coffee in our tiny kitchen, its window facing the central square where the old art gallery once bore the Whitmore name. It used to be my family's pride. Every morning, as the first sunlight filters through the sheer curtains, I look toward that building. The sign still reads Whitmore Gallery, bold and clear, but to me it's just a dust-covered piece of the past. Mom, I finished my drawing. Liam's bright voice cuts through my wandering thoughts. He runs into the kitchen, holding up a watercolor painting of a dog lying under an autumn tree, its eyes hauntingly expressive. I bend down and brush my fingers through his soft, light brown hair. You observe so well, Liam. I'm really proud of you. That dog looks so sad. At the park yesterday, Mom, he says. I freeze. The way he feels emotions through images reminds me of myself in high school, always being told I was too sensitive, too dreamy. Now I teach children's art classes at the local community center. It's not a dream job, but it lets me paint and inspire kids trying to find their way in a world that often feels too rigid. Our apartment is small but cozy, with walls covered in oil and pastel paintings, mostly mine, some from my young students. My work occasionally hangs in local cafes or bakeries, not for fame, but to remind myself I still exist through my passion. Mom, today I get to work with clay, right? Liam asks, already putting on his backpack. That's right, Miss Marion, the one famous for her pottery, will visit your class today. Go wild with your creativity. Liam jumps up in excitement. I smile, but deep inside, a quiet emptiness stirs through the cracks of memory. My parents, Richard and Amelia Whitmore, used to own Hilford's most renowned gallery. They were always at big events, dressed impeccably, speaking of art as if it only existed in contracts and appraisals. Meanwhile, I, their eldest daughter, was only allowed to treat painting as a passing hobby. I loved oil paintings since I was little, and even won a few small school art competitions. But when I told my mom I wanted to study fine arts, she smiled and folded up my application form. Painting is fun, but it won't feed you. I understood they had expectations, a reputation to uphold, a perfect image to protect. But what they never understood was this: I don't paint to live. I live to paint. When I turned 18, everything changed forever. The only person who truly believed in my talent was Leo, an upperclassman from our high school art club. We shared the same ache of being overlooked and dreamed of a world where emotions didn't have to be hidden. But that dream turned into a nightmare when a pregnancy test showed 2 lines. I tested 3 times, all the same result. I was pregnant, barely past my 18th birthday. They didn't scream or cry. They just closed my bedroom door and said flatly, Megan, as of today, you are no longer a Whitmore. I was forced to leave within 24 hours, carrying only a backpack and some loose change from my little brother's piggy bank. No one asked where I'd go or if I was scared, but I didn't stop because I had Liam, and I chose to move forward, not for them, but for me and my son, who deserved a world that knew how to love. I still remember that October afternoon. The sky over Hilford was gloomy, like it sensed something coming. I stood at the iron gate of the Whitmore estate, clutching the test stick in my pocket. 2 red lines, undeniable. 3 tests, same answer. No turning back. I stepped onto the marble path, heels echoing through the cold, grand hall. My mother, Amelia, was in the kitchen peeling apples, her hair perfectly pinned. My father, Richard, sat in his study, reading an art magazine. Everything seemed peaceful, as if I wasn't trembling between youth and the weight of a future. Mom, I need to talk to you, seriously. She looked up, frowning. If this is about applying to art school again, Megan, I'm out of patience. I took a deep breath. I'm pregnant. For the first time in my life, I saw the knife fall from her hand. 1 second later, dead silence. My father stepped out of the hallway, his eyes darkening as if I'd committed the ultimate offense. What? You're joking? I shook my head, my voice small. I'm pregnant with Leo's baby. My father's anger didn't explode immediately. It rose slowly, like a storm building at sea. That boy? You're throwing your future away for someone with no home, no name, no money. I love him, and I want to keep the baby. At the time, I still believed in Leo, that if my parents rejected us, we could make it together. No, absolutely not, my mother snapped, standing up. Do you think this baby makes you a good mother? You're turning yourself into a joke in this town. My father walked to the window, back turned, his voice colder than ever. From now on, you are no longer a daughter of the Whitmore family. If you choose this, you're on your own. Leave tonight. Everything inside me crumbled. I stood there stunned, in the house I grew up in, hearing my dignity crash onto the hardwood floor. I had just hours to gather what little I could carry. That night, I sat on a park bench near school, phone trembling in my hand as I called Leo. All I needed was for him to say, "Don't worry, we'll get through this." And I would have been stronger than ever. "Megan," his voice came through. "You're calling late. I need to see you." "I'm pregnant." Silence, one beat, then two. Finally a sigh. "Are you sure?" "Completely. I took 3 tests." "Megan, I can't be a dad right now. I got a scholarship. I'm moving to New York next month. This is an opportunity I can't lose." I felt the world collapse around me. "And what about me? What about the baby?" "You'll be okay. You're strong." "I'm sorry." Click. The wind bit through my thin coat, but it was nothing compared to the hollow ache inside. I sat alone the entire night, not knowing where to go or what to do. The next morning, I returned to school with swollen eyes and numb legs. Then I saw Miss Lorraine, the only art teacher who ever believed in me. She rushed over, grabbed my shoulders. "Megan, what happened to you?" I couldn't hold it in. I broke down. For the first time in weeks, someone listened without judgment. "You can stay at my house as long as you need. You don't have to go through this alone." I nodded through tears. That night, I had a roof over my head, a place to start over. No parents, no boyfriend, no relatives standing by me. But I had Liam, still unborn, already teaching me how to stand tall. I moved into a tiny wooden cottage behind Miss Lorraine's garden, the only adult who didn't turn away from me. The room was small, barely big enough for a single bed, an old desk and a chipped brass lamp. But to me, it was everything, a true home. Each day, I helped her cook and clean, and after school we painted together. She didn't ask much, didn't pity me. She gave me space to breathe, to get back on my feet. Most importantly, she made sure I stayed in school. As my belly grew, whispers followed me down the hallways, but I didn't care. I sat in the front row, submitted my work on time, and spent nights studying art education, the dream I once never dared to name. On graduation day, Liam was the size of a small watermelon inside me. I walked into that exam hall with swollen feet, aching back, and a loose coat to hide the stares. But once I started writing, I felt free, a feeling I never knew in the luxury of the Whitmore mansion. 3 weeks later, I gave birth to Liam on a hot summer afternoon. The small town hospital had no private rooms, no fancy bassinets, just creaky ceiling fans and the sharp smell of antiseptic. But when I heard his cry, I knew it was all worth it. I named him Liam because the name means strong-willed protector, and that's what I pray for him, to grow up kind, strong, and never feel like a burden to anyone. For the first 2 years, I survived on a part-time assistant stipend from the local art college. Mornings, I babysat. Evenings, I took online classes to get certified to teach art. Miss Lorraine watched Liam on weekends while I worked shifts at a bakery downtown. Some nights, I was so exhausted I'd fall asleep while mixing watercolor. But I never complained because for the first time, everything I did had meaning. When Liam turned 3, I earned my community art teacher certification. The day I held that certificate, I sat on Miss Lorraine's porch and cried harder than when my parents turned me away. Not from pain, but because I had made it, alone but unbroken. I got a job teaching children's art classes at the Hilford Art Center, a place that used to be my and Leo's favorite weekend spot in high school. Now every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday I bike Liam to class, then start teaching kids how to blend colors, using light, emotions, and the things words can't explain. I don't teach them to paint what they see. I teach them to paint what they feel. Liam's drawings started showing up on our walls, taped up with clear adhesive. They were clumsy but full of feeling. A smiling cat, a red maple tree in winter, a mother and child standing in the rain under a green umbrella. Even in those childlike strokes, I could see it. Liam had talent, a gift I would never force but always nurture if he was ready. One October afternoon, while cleaning up after class, I got an email from a local art cafe. We were very impressed with Miss Megan Whitmore's artwork displayed in the children's classroom. We'd like to invite you to showcase several pieces next month. Please let us know if you're interested. I read it over and over, barely believing it. All these years I had painted out of passion, driven by an instinctive belief that art wasn't a luxury. It was where people could be themselves. And now someone had seen that evening. While making dinner, I told Liam, "Guess what? Someone wants to hang Mommy's paintings in public." Liam cheered. "Ugh, are you famous now, Mommy?" I laughed. "I'm just your mom, but I think we're starting a new chapter, Liam." I looked out the window. Outside, orange and red leaves danced in the wind like autumn letters. I didn't have relatives to lean on, no grandparents to pick Liam up from school, but I had my son and I had a life simple but full. On Wednesday afternoon, just after I'd finished my last class and was putting away brushes, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I looked at the screen and my heart skipped a beat. Chloe Whitmore. I didn't misread it. It was my sister, the one I hadn't spoken to since I left home nearly 6 years ago. My hand trembled around the cloth I was holding. I hesitated for a few seconds, then picked up the call. "Megan, it's me, Chloe." Her voice was still soft, like it used to be, but something in her tone made me wary. "What is it?" "I'm getting married early next month. I want you to come." I said nothing. That simple sentence stirred a flood of emotions: doubt, anger, and somewhere very faintly longing. After all these years, I exhaled, my voice nearly hoarse. "You're calling just to invite me to a wedding?" "It's not just that. Dad has heart problems. It's gotten worse lately. And Mom, she's changed." I let out a bitter laugh. "Changed? You mean they suddenly realized they had another daughter after throwing me out like I was some stain on their perfect image?" Silence. Then Chloe said softly, "I can't defend what they did, but I've missed you. I've been following your art online. Liam, he looks so much like you when you were little." I gripped the phone tighter, my chest aching with something unnameable. "They want to see you," Chloe continued. "They know they were wrong and they sent you this." The next afternoon, while I was helping Liam set up his paint at the studio, the mailman arrived. A thin envelope, no sender's name, but the slanted handwriting was unmistakable. It was my father's, Richard Whitmore. I opened it. Inside was a short, handwritten letter. "Again, this is a portion of the trust fund you were meant to receive. If you're willing, I'd like to see you again, not to justify anything, only to listen. I hope you'll consider it. Signed, Richard Whitmore." Enclosed was a check, a generous sum, more than I had made in an entire year of teaching art. I sat still for a long time after reading it, my heart tangled in memories. That check couldn't erase the nights Liam and I spent in need, or the nights I carried him through the freezing cold to find medicine. But the letter, it was the first time he had ever addressed me by name. That night, while doing dishes, Liam tugged on my shirt. "Hey, Mommy, do I have grandparents?" I paused, looking into his sky-blue eyes. I knew he'd been wondering this for a long time. "Yes, but they live very far away." "Can I meet them?" That simple question haunted me all night. I couldn't deny my son the chance to have a family, even if it wasn't perfect, but I also couldn't forgive so easily. The next morning, I texted Chloe, "I'll come, but I'm doing it for Liam, not for them." 3 days later, a wedding invitation was delivered by hand. Elegant cardstock, intricate floral patterns, exactly my mother's style. Inside was a short letter from her. "No words can change the past, but I hope you'll give the present a chance, even if it's late. I've always wished to see my grandchild just once." The last line was smudged, like a drop of water had fallen while she wrote. Maybe tea, maybe a tear. I folded the letter and placed it carefully in my drawer. That night, while brushing Liam's hair on the bed, I whispered, "Next weekend, I'm taking you somewhere special." "Will there be cake?" he asked. "Yes, and someone who used to be part of Mommy's family." Liam tilted his head, unsure, but then nodded. As long as you're there, Mommy. I hugged him tightly, my heart still a storm underneath. But I knew if I didn't face the past, it would keep living inside me like an unhealed scar. Chloe's wedding was held at Granville Hall, one of the most luxurious venues in Hilford. The entrance was covered in white orchids, and a string quartet played soft classical music. I held Liam's hand as we walked into the grand hall, already full of guests. Heads turned, whispers rippled like waves. I could feel it. They recognized me, Megan Whitmore, the daughter who'd been cast out, the one who'd vanished from the esteemed family for nearly 6 years. But today, I didn't come alone. I came with my son, Liam, in a fitted little suit, his blue eyes wide with curiosity and tension. Mommy, why is everyone looking at us? I squeezed his hand. Because you're too handsome. They're surprised. Liam giggled, and my tension eased. Just then, Chloe, radiant in her elegant wedding gown with her hair swept up, ran over and hugged me. You really came. I held her gently. Congratulations. After a brief greeting, we were seated at a private table near the window. Liam gazed around excitedly, asking about the violins, crystal chandeliers, and fancy dishes. Mommy, can I draw? I pulled out his sketch pad and colored pencils from my bag. He never traveled without them. Liam dragged a chair to the corner of the table and started sketching like no one else existed. That was his world of colors and imagination. A while later, a middle-aged man approached our table. He was tall, with salt and pepper hair, and sharp yet kind eyes. Chloe walked beside him and whispered, "This is Mr. Gerald Monroe. He's an art critic for Canvas Weekly magazine." I shook his hand politely, ready for a quick exchange. But Mr. Monroe's eyes landed on one of Liam's drawings. "Did your son draw this?" "Yes, he did." He leaned down, carefully picking up a picture. An autumn scene with falling leaves over a small stream and two figures, clearly a mother and child, walking together. The composition, the color choices, the emotional depth at his age, to sense and express this. This boy has a natural gift. I stayed silent. Liam simply smiled and kept drawing, unfazed. "Forgive me for asking," Mr. Monroe said. The Whitmore name, there were a few gifted painters in that family. "Are you related to the Whitmore Gallery?" I nodded slowly. "I'm Richard Whitmore's eldest daughter." The room seemed to pause. Mr. Monroe looked at me, then at Liam, his eyes filled with awe. "Then it makes sense. The legacy lives on." His words spread through the room like wildfire. A few guests whispered, more eyes turned to our table. As the music paused for the ceremony, an elderly guest, clearly one of my father's old friends, called out, "Is it true? That's Richard's grandson drawing over there?" Another voice joined in. I heard Richard used to be a talented artist himself. Why did he stop painting? All eyes turned. My father, standing at a far corner with my mother, looked visibly uneasy. My mother stepped forward, trying to restore order. "Let's not let personal matters interrupt today's celebration." But Mr. Monroe gently interjected. "To me, this isn't personal. It's talent and a chance for a family to see what they nearly missed." I stood up, ready to take Liam and leave. I didn't want Chloe's wedding disrupted by unresolved history. But just as I turned, I heard my father's voice. "Megan, wait." I turned back. He walked toward me slowly, his face showing age, his eyes no longer holding that coldness I remembered. "Please don't go. Chloe was right, we were wrong, and today, in front of everyone, if you can give your father a chance." I looked at him, then at Liam, who stared up at me, not fully understanding but holding my hand tight. In that moment, I didn't see the man who threw me out. I saw a father trying to lower his pride and start over. Before I could answer, Chloe stepped forward and stood beside me in the middle of the room, full of curious eyes. "Everyone," she said boldly, her voice steady. "Today is my wedding day, a day I wanted everyone who matters to be here, and my sister Megan is an irreplaceable part of this family." She paused, her gaze shifting to my mother, who stood frozen, trying to maintain composure as her hands clenched the handkerchief until her knuckles turned white. "It's time we stopped pretending like nothing happened. It's time we acknowledged the truth." She was hurt, cast out of her own home, yet she stood strong, raised her son with love, and above all, kept her kindness. I felt Liam's grip on my hand tighten. He didn't know the details, but he sensed the tension and instinctively stood closer to me. If today is the day I start my own family, Chloe continued, then I want to begin with honesty, with compassion, no hiding, no avoiding. And I'm proud to have my sister Megan and my nephew Liam by my side. Applause broke out, not all at once, but loud enough to drown out the whispers. I glanced at my parents. My father had his head bowed, his shoulders slightly trembling. My mother was crying for the first time, not out of anger or disappointment, but regret. My father stepped closer, his voice low. Megan, if I could go back to that day, I wouldn't choose silence. I was afraid of losing our reputation, our image. I looked him in the eyes. I don't need an apology to feel better. I need change. My mother stepped forward too, gently and hesitantly, taking Liam's hand. He's truly special and worthy of love, even if I didn't see it before. I took a deep breath. If you really want to make things right, then start with actions, not gifts or empty words. Come to my class, watch your grandson learn, ask, share, be patient. Forgiveness doesn't come in a day, it's nurtured one act at a time. My father nodded, not arguing. We'll start from the beginning, if you'll let us. He bent down and looked at Liam. What do you think about Grandma and Grandpa coming to art class with you on Saturday? Liam looked up at me, then at them. Will you come, Mommy? I nodded. Always. The party continued. The mood softened, and the curious glances shifted into quiet admiration. There was still distance between us, but I knew that day was the first step, a bridge laid across a chasm that had been open too long. As the celebration neared its end, Gerald Monroe, the art critic, approached me again. I'm organizing a children's art showcase at the town museum. I'd like to invite Liam to participate, and you, if you're willing to share your story. I didn't answer right away, but inside, something shifted. Not just forgiveness toward others, but a release for myself. On the way home, Liam tugged my sleeve and whispered, Mommy, do you think they'll really come to art class? I smiled. I don't know, but I do know we gave them a chance. What they do with it is up to them. We stepped out of the hall into the night breeze, rustling the trees. I squeezed Liam's hand, feeling lighter than I had in years. About 3 weeks after Chloe's wedding, I received an unexpected call from my father. His voice was still hesitant, but no longer prideful. Megan, are you free this weekend? Is something wrong? I'd like to come see your class if you'll have me. I stepped out into the hallway, quiet for a moment, then nodded, though he couldn't see it. Class starts at 9 a.m., Saturday. If you really want to come, be on time. I'll be there, and I'll bring some of my old sketches if that's okay. After the call ended, I stood by the window, sunlight spilling across the paint-stained tablecloth. For the first time in nearly 6 years, I felt like the impossible might be starting to become real. That Saturday, I arrived early to prep the classroom. Liam had been too excited to sleep since 6 a.m. He even packed a watercolor set for Grandpa Richard to try. When my father walked in, Liam ran to open the door like he'd been waiting forever. He wore a pale shirt, carrying a bundle of old sketches wrapped in canvas cloth. As he looked around the small classroom lined with children's paintings and the sign that read Miss Megan's art class, I saw something soften in his eyes. You designed all this? Every color, every brush, every chair paid for with my savings. It's not gilded like the Whitmore gallery rooms, but it's filled with real laughter. He didn't argue. He simply walked slowly around the room, taking in the work, then paused at one of Liam's pieces, a winter forest bathed in blue-purple light under a starry sky. Sees like a grown artist. I know, but I never push him to paint. If he chooses another path, I'll still support him. My father looked at me for a long time, then quietly unrolled his old sketches, drawings from his youth. Neither of us said anything, but I could feel it through those faded lines. He was showing me a part of his past he had buried, a part he once feared I'd become. In the days that followed, he began visiting more often, at first just observing, then eventually sitting down to teach the kids some basic techniques. My students started calling him the old art teacher, and Liam proudly told his friends, my grandpa can mix colors without a palette. As for my mother, Amelia, she found her own way to bond with Liam. Every Wednesday afternoon, She invited him to the park with apple pie and coloring books. I thought she might feel awkward, but instead she made Liam laugh with made-up fairy tales. One day, Liam came home saying Grandma said an owl once studied painting and opened a gallery under an oak tree. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. A child once unacknowledged now laughing in his grandparents' arms. And then something happened that I never dared to dream. The Whitmore Gallery hosted an exhibit titled The New Generation. The curator, none other than Chloe, invited me to display works by my students. Would you say yes? Chloe asked during an afternoon coffee. I thought for a long time, then nodded. If it's a place where children are valued, not judged, then yes, I'll bring their work. On opening day, I stood in the children's section, where the paintings were framed at eye level for little ones. Each piece had a small name tag and a handwritten note from me. When Gerald Monroe stopped by and saw one of Liam's paintings, he smiled. It's not just talent, it's being nurtured the right way. My father stood behind me, saying nothing, but his eyes gleamed, as if he'd finally found a part of himself that had been lost for years. That afternoon, light rain tapped against the gallery windows during the second installment of the children's exhibition. I was helping students clean up their watercolors when Chloe rushed in, looking unsettled. Megan, there's someone waiting for you in the lobby. He says his name is David Black. My hand froze midair. That name cut through the piece I'd built for nearly 6 years. David, the man who once promised to stay no matter what, then disappeared when things got hard. I stepped outside, the glass doors slid open, and there he stood in a dark suit, slicked back hair, shiny shoes like he walked out of an ad. But those eyes, I still recognized them. Eyes I once trusted, now made me feel guarded. Megan, you look just as beautiful, he said with a smile. What are you doing here? I saw the article about the exhibit, saw your name, then I saw the photo of Liam. He held out a local magazine. It had an interview about the kids' art class, featuring a photo of me and Liam painting in the sunlight. He's my son, Megan, and I think it's time I make it right. I couldn't hold back a dry laugh. Make it right, after 6 years without a single message, not a dollar, not even a call? I was young, I didn't know what to do. But it's different now. I have a stable job. I want Liam to know who I am. Liam already knows who's been there for him. And it's not you. Megan, I have rights. No, I cut him off. What rights, David? When I was struggling to raise him, where were you? When he had a fever on a freezing night, when I painted through exhaustion to afford his art supplies, when he asked me, who's my dad? Where were you? David said nothing, but I could see it, the calculation behind his silence. He didn't come out of love. He came for something else. Maybe image, maybe reputation, maybe a chance to attach himself to something that looked good. If you don't leave now, I said, voice low but firm, my attorney will contact you. And this time you'll have to face what you ran from. Every hospital record from when I gave birth to Liam. A statement from Miss Lorraine, the woman who took me in when you vanished. The last message you sent me. And if needed, I'll tell the press how you abandoned a pregnant 18-year-old girl for a scholarship. You can't do that. He stepped back. Trust me, I said firmly, looking him in the eye. It's not just that I can do it. I will. Because my son deserves a life untouched by a man who only came back after seeing his face in a magazine. The gallery door opened. My father, Richard Whitmore, walked in. Without a word, he stepped forward and stood beside me. His face was calm, but there was a quiet force in his eyes that made David immediately step back. I'm Richard Whitmore, he said. And you should know I hired a lawyer 6 years ago in case you ever showed up again. They're ready now. David froze. I just want to know my child. You don't have a child here, my father said, his voice low and steady. You gave that up when you walked away, and if you take one more step, I'll personally send every document we've prepared to the biggest media outlets in Vermont. A gust of wind blew through the open doors, slicing through the silence. David clenched his fists, his eyes showing more bruised pride than actual remorse. He turned without another word, his footsteps loud and sharp. But the arrogance from earlier was gone. I watched him leave, not with satisfaction but with relief. The past had come knocking again, but this time, I didn't let it in. That night, while reading to Liam before bed, he asked, Mom, who was that man? I placed my hand on his soft, light brown curls. Liam, just someone Mommy used to know. He's not important anymore. But I still have you, Grandma, and Grandpa, and Aunt Chloe, right? I nodded, smiling. Yes, sweetheart, and you have a whole world that loves you genuinely, without conditions. Liam snuggled under the blanket, satisfied, and I knew everything we'd been through was worth it, because I had held on to the one thing that mattered most, my self-respect and my son's future. By late December, Hilford had entered its coldest winter days, bare trees, snow-covered rooftops, and Christmas lights flickering on every street. In our little apartment, the scent of freshly baked gingerbread mingled with soft holiday music playing in the background. Liam sat by the window, coloring a picture of Santa placing presents under the tree. I watched him, a strange feeling settling over me, peaceful yet reflective. Ever since the exhibit and that confrontation with David, I felt like an old door had closed, and a new one still unfamiliar was slowly opening. My family, once fractured by fear and pride, was now stitching itself back together quietly. My father didn't say much, but he came to class every Saturday. Sometimes he just sat in the corner, mixing paint for the kids or helping clean up. He never brought up the past, but through his quiet presence and small gestures, I saw it. He was making amends the only way he knew how, by showing up. My mother, still sharp and composed, began asking Liam more questions. Once, she brought a fairy tale coloring book hand-picked just for him. Watching her read to Liam in that warm, deep voice, I saw a softness in her I had never known, a gentleness long hidden beneath the armor of someone too busy protecting her family's reputation. Chloe visited often, always with baked goods and awkwardly funny stories about newlywed life. She had become the glue, connecting, healing, not through grand speeches, but with patience and quiet sincerity. I wouldn't say I'd forgiven everything. The scars were still there, faded but never gone. But I'd learned not to let them define me. I didn't need anyone to beg for forgiveness or shout that I had been right. I just needed them to stay long enough, real enough, for me to believe they meant it this time. That Christmas Eve, for the first time since Liam was born, we had dinner as a full family. A round table sat in the center of our living room, filled with roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and my father's traditional pecan pie. Liam wore a red sweater Grandma had knitted and couldn't stop talking about my new painting that Aunt Chloe was putting in the city library. My father raised his glass. This year I won't make a big speech. I just want to say thank you for us being here together. I looked at him. No words were needed. I simply nodded. As we stepped outside to watch the snow fall, Liam ran up to me and whispered, "Mommy, can I make a wish this year?" "What is it, sweetheart?" "I don't want any presents. I just want us to have dinner together like this every year." I knelt down and hugged him tightly. "Me too, Liam." Snow gently coated the porch roof, golden light spilling from our warm windows. No one knows what the future holds or whether every crack in the heart will ever fully mend. But I knew one thing. I wasn't alone anymore, and I wasn't the outcast. I was the one chosen again, chosen by the very family that once let me go. My story isn't about seeking forgiveness. It's about rising from hurt to build a life that matters. From a girl rejected by her family, I became a mother, a teacher, a guide for my son. No one can erase the past, but with love and persistence, I turned pain into power, and that opened the door for a broken family to rebuild itself through truth and trust.